Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you for your leadership in putting this program together today. So I'm Roxanne Missingham. I'm the University Librarian at the Australian National University, and I'm delighted to join everyone today from Ngunnawal land. So welcome, and I'd like to recognise the Indigenous people on whose airways and lands we meet and pay my respects to leaders past and present. I'm absolutely thrilled that Nancy was willing to speak to us today. Nancy brings a huge depth of experience, passion, and a long-term commitment to the themes that have been important for the whole series of events we've been putting on this year. So the themes have been access and control. And part of the thinking behind the importance of digital preservation and digitisation is that you can't have access unless you have control. We need to create our new environment, we need to curate our new environment, and we need to have the capabilities to extend that into the future. And our focus has been on creating the debate and discussion to enable us to have those capabilities. So in introducing Nancy, I would like to acknowledge that she was a stellar contributor to the Australian National University before the National Film and Sound Archive fortunately snapped her up. And she has the role at the moment of acting Chief Executive Officer and has seen us through the challenges of COVID, of different sorts of collection challenges, of financial challenges. She is the challenge queen. One day we'll make you a tiara, Nancy. She has over 20 years experience working in executive finance, governance, change, risk management positions, and has been operating at director level for 12 years. Her experience spans many different industries, and she really stands out to me as someone who thinks about the current with an eye on the future, and most importantly, thinks about how she can take the whole sector and take her community of colleagues along with her on the journey. I just wanted to say she's got more challenges than most of us in terms of preservation, because her collection goes tick, tick, tick every time anyone walks by it. And I always remember the smell of vinegar in walking through the National Film and Sound Archive when I was responsible for the lending collection at the National Library. And it is that eye on the future which is critical for us. We've done lots of things with enthusiasm and transformation. And I remember talking to geoscience in Australia in the early part of this decade, and they talk about the digital dark ages. What they talk about in terms of the digital dark ages is the 1990s, because with enthusiasm, we digitised material. Those were slightly after the days of computers with variable speed disk drives, but a lot of the technology that we experimented on in the beginning, not thinking we were experimenting, didn't last. And the whole thinking and the work, particularly that National Film and Sound Archive have done about the complexity of collections and ensuring permanence in the digital environment, is really quite inspiring. So Nancy, thank you so much for being with us today and agreeing to speak, and welcome.
Thank you, Roxanne. That's a wonderful introduction, and I'm very happy to join everybody here this afternoon. I'd like to also begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I'm presenting from, the Ngunnawal people, and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from which you all join me from near and far, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Nancy Bennison, and I'm currently the acting CEO of the National Film and Sound Archive in Australia. I'm going to start today by explaining what you see on the slide, on the cover slide here. Just move this over. Some of you may have seen this race live when Cathy Freeman won gold in the women's 400-metre final at the Sydney Olympic Games almost 21 years ago to the day. It was on the 25th of September 2000. And this time last year, the National Film and Sound Archive projected the race onto the sails of the Sydney Opera House. And that is exciting, but what is most exciting about this is that, aside from the race itself, the footage of the race was preserved on synthetic DNA. And this is the first ever use of this innovative data storage technology to preserve moving image for long-term archival purposes. So it's an iconic moment for Australian history, which has metaphorically become part of Australia's DNA. It's now stored on actual DNA. Today, I'm pleased to share with you an update on the NFSA's digital transformation, of course, focusing on our digital preservation efforts. To begin with, we'll revisit the place of the audiovisual archive in a digital world. I'm then going to share with you some of the foundation projects that the National Film and Sound Archive has completed in recent years, which support our digital growth. I'll talk about the role of data informing our strategy and our shift in our staffing profile in recent years. I'd like to share with you a sneak preview into the work we're doing to apply machine learning to our collection. And this is going to unlock our collection by providing valuable, searchable metadata of content. I'll talk about our progress in ramping up our digitisation efforts, in particular for at-risk items, and leave you with some thoughts as to our biggest area of risk, which is digital storage. Finally, I'm going to share with you our plans for 3 key projects that we're working on at the moment. That's the build of an acquisitions portal, the establishment of born digital workflows. That's how we manage new and varied born digital formats by way of receipt, triage, storage, and access. Our Search the Collection project, finally. So, our digital world. So all of us in attendance today, everyone across the GLAM sector, we all face the same challenge, and we face it now. And that is, we're collecting and preserving analogue material at the same time as we're collecting and preserving born digital material. On top of that, of course, we're digitising our analogue material in order to ensure that it's accessible for future generations. This poses a great risk to us. We're increasingly stretched to fulfil our mandates. To serve our purpose of collect, preserve, and share our collections, we really need a foot in both worlds, the analogue and the digital. It's almost like running 2 organisations at once. So we're consumed with digitising our analogue collections at the moment. There's this time pressure of deadline 2025 that we need to meet. However, at the same time, we need to make sure that we remain current. So are we collecting the digital content that's being created today by creators that use new and varied digital formats? Are we ensuring that changing digital files are upgraded and they're accessible in a sustainable manner? And are we engaging with users the way that they expect? It's about keeping up. And while we've been all consumed with digitising analogue collections, it's really digital preservation is a much broader problem, as I'm sure everyone on the line appreciates. We operate in a world where more data is now created than we can store. We can all send and receive data at great speeds now. And technological development in artificial intelligence and big data analysis, blockchain, they're all swift, they're all exciting. It brings great opportunities for collecting institutions across all sectors, but it also brings risks. And with cybersecurity being, of course, of primary importance. So we need to really keep top of mind how we keep our digital assets safe. So our world has changed significantly and continues to in the way people create digital content, the systems and software that we use to capture, store, analyse and provide access to that content, and also in terms of user expectations. What do people expect from us when they access our collection? I'd like to talk to you about our digital transformation journey so far. That's the NFSA building, by the way. It is not very digital on the outside, but increasingly more so on the inside. It's a beautiful Art Deco complex, but it's a little tricky to make those walls give like we need them to for the equipment and the networks that we are trying to build within. I'm going to talk you through, there's a couple of slides here where I'll show some analytics. They're just static analytics screenshots that I've shared. 2 years ago, we set up our analytics team at the NFSA, and we started small with a couple of staff members who had development experience. We wrote some code over our collection data to see where it was that we stood in our challenge of what needed to be digitised and when. We've moved from that and on to an established analytics site now with pro forma reports which are available and used by all staff, and it continues to grow over time. So I'm very proud of that little team, and I think they've done an absolutely outstanding job to bring to the surface just the size of the problem that the NFSA faces in terms of digitisation of our collection, and also our born digital collection, which grows at the rate of knots. So you'll see here our digital collection really started off in the late noughties, and it's growing exponentially and will continue to do so. Our audio disc collection is starting to plateau. Having said that, the NFSA is still being donated and acquiring a whole lot of analogue material that is only just being surfaced at this point in time. So it's really difficult for collecting institutions such as ours to understand when this tail of analogue material will end. When will it stop making its way to the NFSA? So we need to accommodate that and continue to accommodate that well beyond that deadline of 2025. I just wanted to show just in the bottom, the top graph is, sorry, a repeat of the audio disc. The bottom is our moving image collection. And that's also, as you'll see, plateauing there at the top. Now, when you see this slide when you can see it moving, it's actually very impressive. This shows our digitisation progress. And as you hover your mouse over each of the column graphs there, you'll see the individual titles of what's actually been digitised at the NFSA. So I've just taken a screenshot of Women and Children First, a tribute to Nancy, which I thought was, cool. But there's plenty of stuff in there that we're really seeing for the very first time in a lot of cases. And it's really very exciting to be able to escalate our collection digitisation program in this way. We can then, via our analytics site, look at this by film, by stills, by video, and again, see what it is that we're digitising and when. And that would be something that we would love to be able to share with the Australian public. To give you an idea as to, and I must say, when I first joined the NFSA, I was shocked by the figures, shocked to learn the figures of how little we had digitised. If you look at this audio, we've broken this into audio and video. This is this graph represents our magnetic tape collection. And that is the collection that we hold that is most at risk. And that is because the magnetic tape deteriorates over time. And we predict that by 2025, it'll be disappeared forever. So that's what we've prioritised in terms of our digitisation program. So if you look at that, if you look at them here, the colours mean the pink is what we need to digitise. And that's the most important for us to digitise because it's what we only have a single copy of. The purple, yes, we need to digitise, but we have multiple copies. So it's considered slightly less at risk, although 2 copies can deteriorate at the same rate as 1. And the grey is where we've selected not to digitise the material. So you'll see there for audio, the digitisation rate sitting at about 50% of the magnetic media collection only. We're not the only ones with this problem. I think most people on the line will be able to experience this problem as well. And all of the national collecting institutions have audiovisual items at risk. So you'll see in this chart here, and this data is extremely current. We've just sought this from NCIs. And you can see that each of the national collecting institutions has video, audio, and at-risk film. The numbers that you see on the screen there for film is only the most at-risk film. So we're talking about generally our nitrate film collection and a bit on the outer rim of that. So you'll see that, of course, the National Film and Sound Archive being the collectors of audiovisual heritage, of course, we have the biggest numbers, but it's not something that we suffer through alone. And every other NCI is going through the same challenge. Some examples of what might be lost, and this is where I start to think, I wish we hadn't digitised the Skippy collection and then we could have this amazing campaign of Save Skippy. But we have, don't worry, we've saved Skippy already a long time ago. But what will be lost is actually, it's such important cultural heritage for the Australian people. It really is. So this is just from the National Film and Sound Archive collection. You'll see it covers the nitrate film collection, which really is the film made between the early 1900s to the 1950s, and it's very fragile in nature. The largest part of the nitrate collection includes newsreels representing Australian life and the events that made the news each week. So some examples are some footage of Sir Charles Kingford Smith meeting Charles Ulm and arrival in Australia in 1933. Movie tone news segments, including Nation Mourns John Curtin, 1948. Dame Enid Lyons speaks on the world crisis. Operation of the Women's Land Army, women wanted as volunteers to can fruit in 1945. These are all really important pieces of Australia's history, and they're caught and captured on the moving image, and we need to save that in a format that can be accessible by future generations. It's also our home movie collection, part of our home movie collection. This is my favourite part of our collection because it gives us a glimpse of life captured in a particular era. And it covers everything from everyday family life to travel, both around Australia and internationally, and the big community events in cities and regional towns. So home movies, I think, are really the best example to show how people lived and entertained themselves right from the 1920s to now. We've got the largest collection of home movies in Australia, and we store it on a range of film and video formats. So we've got things such as Menzies Seaside Holiday in 1952, Sunny Ridge Station footage displaying bulls in 1948. We've got Hay Public School, sport and home movies from 1930, some home movies from Albury Wodonga, 1927. We've got a whole host in there, but it gives you a little bit of a flavour. And finally, my third example of what would be lost is one that's dear to my heart, being someone who's actually deaf in one ear, and that is the NFSA's collection of Professor Graham Clark's cochlear implants. So Graham Clark established the Bionic Ear Institute and the Cochlear Implant Clinic. And the NFSA collection includes video of the first cochlear implant commercial operation in 1982, which seems recent, doesn't it? And the first use of cochlear implant speech processors in 1979. And in 1989, a video of the St Mary's School for Hearing Impaired Children. So there's real value in the collections that we hold, and there's a real need and imperative for the nation to digitise those and ensure their ongoing active digital preservation into the future. So I mentioned earlier that as archives, we are stuck, well, we're really having to run at the moment almost dual workforces. We need to maintain the skills to preserve analogue formats and also nurture and continuously develop the skills to deal with the digital. And as we know, everything digital evolves at pace. So this needs to be taken into consideration when we employ people. Instead of recruiting for staff with a specific skill set, which is what we used to do, and I think probably I've seen happen in, as recently to within the last 5 years, we're now recruiting for staff who present digital dexterity. So anyone's heard me present before knows that I love this term coined by the Gartner Group, digital dexterity. So what it means is we need to employ people with the mindset and the capacity to learn, change and evolve. We don't need to necessarily employ the expert in a particular code, for example, or the expert in building a particular network or storage mechanism, for instance. So at the NFSA, we've recently more than doubled our ICT development capacity, for example. COVID saw a change in the market here in Australia for contractors, particularly in the ICT space. And in Canberra, I don't know why we're in these day jobs. I think we should be ICT contractors. The rates have gone up considerably. It's extremely expensive at this point in time to source contractors and consultants in the development space in particular. So by upping our team in-house, we're able to develop our skills across other staff members and also to develop solutions that are fit for purpose for the NFSA. This doesn't mean that we're developing bespoke systems. We're using off-the-shelf solutions, then tailoring them to our needs. We see that as the most sustainable method, so that we then have that system support that wouldn't be relied on via our in-house staff. We've also entered into partnerships with research institutions to help us stay current with different digital solutions. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about a couple of our pilot programs that we've been working on, one of which was with RMIT Blockchain Hub. We've put this into our new NFSA strategic plan for this year, and we're making that a real priority, and that's to partner better with the tertiary sector so that we can't in-house have the experts in every single tech development. And what we would like to do is partner better with tertiary institutions so that we can share what we have to offer, which is, well, we're a national collecting institution with a collection that we can use or share and learn from, and work with our partners at tertiary institutions who are developing new and different ways of preserving content, but also accessing content, different ways of teaching with the content, basically different ways of doing everything that we do today. So the couple of pilot programs I wanted to talk to you about today, the first is on a machine learning solution that we've recently finished, actually a while ago now. We've finished the pilot program and we're running the machine learning software across our entire collection. The second is the blockchain partnership that where we worked with RMIT. So the first program is with a group called Grey Matter, and they utilise a software called Curio. Just going to bring. We worked with Grey Matter to explore how the NFSA can use machine learning to unlock hidden value in their content, understand how the NFSA can use Curio to curate collections coming into the archive, and identify different business cases where machine learning could be applied effectively. I mean, it's a brave new world, the machine learning and AI space, but it's also a really exciting one, and it's one that it's increasingly necessary to step into. So I'm going to just show you a couple of examples of the work that we did with Curio. The first is, facial recognition. This is, it's so important for audio-visual archives to be able to not rely on manual metadata. So we need to be able to run machine learning across collections so that we can surface content better via a search engine so the public can reach it. So we can do that via facial recognition, and that allows users to train faces, locate celebrities, politicians, and other notable people quickly and easily. Obviously, there is a risk to that. Sometimes the software doesn't get it right, but this is what we need to weigh up, the benefits versus the risks. Oops. The second example of the work we did with Curio is around logo detection. Just another example here of the Olympics, and you can see the logos in the background. This is an important element of our social history, the way that we manage advertising over time. And it's an interesting and different way to search the collection that we haven't been able to do before. And then we're using OCR for copyright information. And this is going to help us enormously. We can't make accessible our collection to the public until we understand what the copyright status is on an item. And it's difficult to do that when a lot of the footage that we're dealing with is extremely old, might be orphaned by this point in time. So OCR can be used to find that copyright information on images and videos, and then that really, as I said, helps our access team complete their work in a much faster way and get that material to the public. Finally, there's location detection, and who wouldn't know that beautiful bridge? But it goes beyond something so obvious, and by running the machine learning over our audiovisual collection, you can see where specific things were filmed, which is really exciting actually from a search perspective. So the next pilot program that we worked on was with RMIT Blockchain Hub. So we worked with the Innovation Hub to understand how blockchain technology can benefit the NFSA and improve processes, service delivery to clients, and provide an authentication tool to safeguard and ensure the authenticity of content. The use of blockchain in the creative sector so far has been focused on the identification of copyright holders and the application of IP rights and royalty payments. Now, this is an area of great potential for the NFSA, again, to streamline our access services, but while upholding the rights of copyright owners. The screen and music industries are key areas where digital disruptions could be countered by blockchain applications. As a result, this could have flow-on benefits to the NFSA to help us improve our current resource-heavy work, which is done to uphold the rights of creators to the distribution and sale of their intellectual property. Blockchain's got many applications for our collection, and this is something we've continued to discuss with RMIT and we'll continue to work with them on. And some examples of the potential applications include providing provenance for the NFSA acquired digital material from the source of acquisition, the donor or creator. I think one thing that's become increasingly apparent for archives globally in a digital world, and that is you cannot lose the public's trust. So we need to always be able to ensure that what we hold is the original and the true copy. Another example is it could provide a ledger for internal movement of digital objects, right through from acquisition through to preservation, conservation, storage, use, reuse, migration, deaccessioning, the whole lifespan of when we get something to when it's used by someone. It could provide provenance and tracking for digital items uploaded onto the NFSA's website, our social media platforms, and our online search portals. Could provide blockchain identifiers where there are multiple iterations of a piece of work. For example, we often keep multiple copies of things, such as a director's cut or an extended cut of a feature film. And it could identify when NFSA material has been altered or edited in any way that misrepresents the original content's purpose or seeks to promote an alternative fact. So identifying misuse of NFSA material without consent, with or without a commercial interest, is a real focus for us, and we'll be continuing to investigate these types of technologies. I think probably I've said enough on the RMIT collaboration, but feedback we've received from both RMIT and the NFSA has been hugely positive, with both parties agreeing that blockchain provides really exciting opportunities to develop further applications for securing and sharing digital collections. Collaboration with other cultural institutions is highly beneficial in future blockchain projects, and I think a blockchain network of cultural institutions could provide immense value to the sector and increase the trust placed on us as custodians of national collections. We'll talk now about digitisation now. So in June last year, a fabulous day in June last year for the NFSA, we received $5.5 million from the Morrison government to digitise our at-risk collection. And we've been working like the clappers since then to upscale our operations. So we estimate that the collection material that's held on magnetic tape will no longer be accessible if it is not digitised by 2025. And what's more, it's deteriorating every day. So the processes that we need to go through to get the tape, prepare the tape, to put it on the machines to be digitised gets harder each day. So our rates of digitisation are going to slow between now and 2025. Sorry, not the rates, the time taken to digitise one item will slow between now and 2025. So what the additional funding has done for us is dramatically increased our digitisation activity. We're delivering a program over 3 years that will allow us to digitise all of our at-risk video and audio collections and some of our at-risk film collection. The first year of the project has been on upscaling our activities, and that includes investing in the equipment and the skills we need to do the work. And over the next 2 years, we're going to be focused on increasing our levels of digitisation output. This is a picture of what we lovingly call Cineworld at the NFSA, and it's new and it's exciting. Overall, we're tripling our capacity to digitise at-risk video. And the way we've done that is we've installed 6 4-channel video multi-stream ingest units, which are called CineDex, and that brings us to a total of 24 channels. And even getting these installed in our beautiful Art Deco building required some significant moves and build of our new work area. This machine is now operational and was going extremely well until we got locked down a few weeks back. So we really can't wait to get back behind that machine and get it cranking again. We've also significantly increased our digitation of our audio material. We've added 3 new audio digitisation suites, so that takes us from 7 to 10 studios. And our film digitisation is also growing. There's been a steady increase over the financial year 2021, and again this year. So noting that we've focused the film on that magnetic tape, which is most at risk, as the early part of the project. And the investment is not just the machines; it's the behind the scenes infrastructure. So we needed to build a network of a scale able to accommodate the movement of much greater quantity and size of files. So that means we also needed to invest in additional on-premise storage for the same reason. And in a moment, I'll talk about how important digital storage is, both on-premise and off. We've bolstered our team as well, and this is interesting in that we've now got a whole lot of new technicians to operate our new equipment. And this sees a whole new generation of staff coming into the team. This has been really important for us to teach younger staff to utilise the equipment. We've had a risk that we've been highly dependent on highly skilled experts, particularly in the engineering space and the digitisation space. And we've worked to mitigate that risk now by teaching some new staff. So it's enhanced our skills and resource base, but it's also been important to boost the team's morale and coherence. And so we've seen a whole lot of increased training and skill sharing as a result of that. Digital storage. Digital storage is what keeps me awake at night, sadly. The NFSA, at the moment, we use about 7 petabytes of storage, and we estimate that by the time we digitise our 2025 challenge, we need to be able to store 110 petabytes worth of our collection. That's our collection alone. We estimate that the rest of the NCIs would take that to 165 petabytes. So this is really big numbers, and the reason for that is the size of the files simply. So I've lost my notes to get it right, but I think it's one film file is, I've got it, 20 to 25 terabytes of space just for one single feature film. So we're talking really big numbers here. The NFSA, we store on LTO tape, and at the moment we have on-premise storage. And that means it's finite. We only have so much space, we only have so much tape, and what we need to do is build a data centre that can accommodate our increasing digitised collection, but also our born digital content, which is coming in very, very quickly every day. Roxanne, at the beginning of this presentation, mentioned that I was the queen of disasters or something. I've forgotten what it was, but at the last year we went through the smoke and COVID and the hailstorm in Canberra. And that hailstorm in Canberra last year has really continues to just keep giving to us. So we need to now replace our roof. And our data storage unit is on the top floor. So, just when you were making some inroads in terms of, how we could expand the data storage solution, we now need to move it entirely and think very much outside the box as to how we deal with this challenge. I mentioned before that the world's producing more data than we can store. So in addition to this challenge, AV archives also face rapid technological obsolescence. And I'm not just talking about the collection items themselves. It's the equipment and machinery that we need in order to be able to play these items and play them back. So we must constantly transfer our collection to new technologies to ensure their survival and accessibility. So we always like to explore new solutions that are going to allow us to store and manage our massive digital collection in the most efficient, reliable, scalable, economically viable, and also environmentally responsible way. And this is why we invested in the future of data storage by testing the DNA storage solution, which I spoke about right at the very beginning with the footage of Kathy Freeman, the first audio-visual footage captured on synthetic DNA in the Southern Hemisphere. So not unlike the dinosaur cloning explanation scene in Jurassic Park, you might be wondering how this synthetic DNA actually works. And I don't want anyone to ask me any detailed questions because the science behind this baffles me. But while digital information we know is stored using a series of zeros and ones, DNA information is based on 4 nucleotide bases. I'm not even going to say them, but it's A, T, G, and C. And the order and sequence of these determines the information stored on the DNA strand. So in order to encode digital data such as video or audio onto DNA, the zeros and ones are converted into A, T, G, and Cs. And the sequence is then stored on silicon-based synthetic DNA. Synthetic DNA offers great information storage density. So theoretically, the entire NFSA collection could fit 6 times over in synthetic DNA the size of just a matchbox. You could fit the entire internet as it is at this point in time in the size of a shoebox. So it really is mind-boggling to think what could be upon us in the future for data storage. This is a solution that's still innovative, it's still being tested. The NFSA will not be moving our collection onto synthetic DNA anytime soon, but it is important for us to keep across what's happening in the industry and what's happening in the world. I'll move on from storage. I want to talk now, just for the last few minutes of my presentation, as to what's next for the NFSA. And we've got a few key projects that we're working on right now that'll take us into our next phase of digital transformation. So I've talked about using digital dexterity to offset inertia and bureaucracy and become more agile as an organisation so that we can seize new opportunities and try not to get tied down by processes and, I guess, red tape that exists in every institution. We need to be as agile as we can and keep up with the world as best as we can. So we do this by focusing completely on digital transformation of the archive. It's essential for us to do this. If we're not modernising, we'll be left behind, we'll lose relevancy and become obsolete. The big problem is that change brings uncertainty, and for a still fairly analogue organisation like ours, it can be really terrifying. But at the end of the day, it really is now more of a now or never moment. So we've got to start taking these chances, because doing things like we've always done them is no longer an option. So we talk about being an archive that is digital by design. What we mean by that is that it's our intention to think and act and be digital first. So we want digital experiences to be intrinsically part of the life of the archive and the people who learn and experience and create with us. So basically now is the time to fully realise the opportunities of that digital evolution. We've got 4 projects that we're working on at the moment that I'm just going to provide brief overviews to you about. One is our collection acquisitions portal. Hold on, just get my notes up. Collection acquisitions portal. We're working on our digital workflows, and what I mean by that is the flow of a complex digital object from the moment it hits the digital doors of the NFSA, right through to when it's accessible for use and for reuse as well by a third party, by a member of the public. We need to upgrade our search the collection capacity, and I've spoken a little bit about what we're doing there with Curio. And then really we need a digital platform to springboard our collection from our safe house, the NFSA, to the rest of the world. So looking at digital workflows, we're looking at it, as I said, across the full archival process. And we need to look at opportunities to automate and to track and to synchronize. We're treating this as one enterprise-wide project, and there's a whole lot of elements to it. It's not, as we're discovering every single day, it's not as simple as documenting some business requirements and coming up with a tech solution. There's a whole lot of nuances to this, to the digital workflows that we're trying to build. I had a meeting with a couple of our curatorial staff last week, I think, and we were talking about, at the moment, the NFSA collects new media in the form of games. How do we package those games up in a way that can work with our digital asset management system, so that we can actively preserve the digital files that we keep in there, and so that in the future, or at any time from now, somebody can say, I'd like access to that game, thanks, and I want to be able to play it just as it was played originally. So it almost feels like a mission impossible, but it's not. It's about us understanding, working with the creators to understand how these more complex digital objects are being created, how we can then preserve them and look at active preservation. So that goes beyond simply just tar wrapping a digital file. It's much more involved than that, and that's going to be an increased area of focus for the NFSA. We're most certainly not there yet. And then we also need to think about, these things are digital cultural collection items are being created every single day in a million different formats. And we need to be ready to know how to deal with new formats that come in. So just as we've mastered, okay, we've got TikTok now, we know how to archive that, there'll be something new tomorrow, and we need to be ready. The next project is about our acquisitions portal. At present, the onus really is on our curatorial team to go and receive items and enter details into our asset management system. It doesn't allow for a very good tracking of acquisitions, and there's a lot of manual entry and a lot of movement. So what this portal will do is take advantage of what's already digital. So if you've got digital information attached to something, an object, digital object, then we need to be able to pick that digital information up, anything that surrounds the object, and have everything inputted into our system, not manually, but digitally. So this means we need to be able to map that information. An acquisitions portal will also allow tracking for donations through the workflow, and it also builds on automation in terms of, for example, virus checking, creation of checksums and quality control, so that file is checked every step of the way. It's going to free up a lot of curatorial time. And this is really important as well, because there's a role for a curator in the future, but it's different to what it is now. And that curator, that digital curator, it's simply impossible to sift through every single digital item that comes in one by one. It's going to need to be a much different view of the world in order to capture and preserve that cultural slice of audiovisual history. And finally, this is a picture of our Search the Collection interface on our website. I'm not going to direct you all there because it looks pretty on the front, but it's really clunky behind, and that's what we're working on. It's one of our major interfaces for research and access to the collection to our stakeholders. And our website is lovely. It was rebuilt 4 years ago, but the Search the Collection interface is out of date. It doesn't link to our asset management system, and it doesn't allow for full search of the collection. And that is really important. We need to be able to balance the resources that we're putting into preservation with access. And finally, our access platform. which is just different to search, because search allows you to search and discover, and access allows you to actually access and get. So it's a priority. It's part of our mandate is to share our collection. It's a priority for us to continue to do that, and we need to do that with more and more reach so that we can share it with all Australians, not just those that live in Canberra or in the capital cities. So we do this through a number of means. We provide content digitally to external stakeholders for use and reuse. And at the moment, this process is pretty manual, and when we provide the content, it can be problematic when file sizes are large, which they are for us. It's problematic at our end, but it's problematic at the receiver's end as well. So longer term, our aim is to build a platform where it provides seamless access to our digitally available content for our external stakeholders. Obviously, that's reliant on what we can digitise and the rights that we can clear. So it's all a little bit of an ecosystem in terms of where to put your resources. The moment, our access platform, it's still very early days, and we're working on some fundamental questions about what it would look like. We know what we want it to look like. We need to fit that into our funding envelope. So I'm going to conclude my presentation now. Oh, there's our analogue building again. I've talked through different elements of digital transformation and digital preservation. I've talked about some of the work that the NFSA has done in terms of digital transformation, in particular our focus on analytics. We've talked about pilot projects with Curio and blockchain, talked about our digitisation program, the challenge of digital storage for the NFSA, but for all of us the world over, and then what's next for us in terms of digital transformation projects. So I'm very happy now to pass back to Roxanne and take any questions.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That's just a wonderful way to connect all of the complexities that we have to deal with, and the fact that you can take a breath at the end and say, look, great achievements, see the little path ahead, and know that there'll be even more excitement in the future is really quite inspiring to us. Now, we do have time for a couple of questions. People can put them in, and we have a question. Someone has asked, they've started by commenting that they're really interested in the observation that you are actually running two parallel questions in terms of organisations. First, how do we deal with the traditional acquisition and print? And then the second, when we're at print and conversion to digital, and the second, dealing with the born digital. How do you keep an organisation connected and aligned when there are such diverse challenges around preservation? Is the question.
Oh, that question really is on the money, isn't it? When I describe the NFSA, when I'm lobbying for the NFSA, I say, you know, we were created in 1984, and we were told to collect, preserve and share audiovisual cultural heritage. And we're still funded the same way, and we're still structured relatively similarly. So what we've been trying to do is continue to be what we were, which is we're collecting analogue items, and we have a library in the front room, and you can come and have a look at the collection in there. And now we're saying, actually, not only do we need to collect analogue still, we need to digitise it, and then we also need to collect born digital. But the question was really around how do you align different ways of thinking, and how do you align your workforce behind that? We've been working very hard on a cultural change program at the NFSA, and I think what we've seen in the digitisation team has been really uplifting in terms of what can happen when you blend the old and the new. So we have some new staff members that have come in with really strong digital background, and they are working with some of the staff members that have been there for a long time. And you can see there's a little bit of reluctance at first, there always is, but there's now, when the possibilities can be demonstrated and when you can show via the equipment and new and exciting softwares that what we can actually do, that's when the magic happens. So look, in short, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's possible. And when you're on the upswing and you can start to see what could be done, and that's where we're at the moment, that's when things are beginning to look a lot brighter.
And I think you've also said to us really there that a lot of the importance is having the continuing conversations between
That's
staff
right.
who are working in both worlds, because it is the joy about the collection and access that creates the environment for change.
Absolutely right.
Good point.
Absolutely right. And it's so important that the experts that we have on staff that have been with us for a very long time, we really need to hold on to that amazing wealth of knowledge that's in their minds. And we try to give our staff members and former staff members a means to present and share their skills. So we've got a bit more cross-training going on. And that goes for every element of the organisation, not just when it comes to the equipment and the digitisation staff, but it's also in the curatorial staff. There's a new generation of curators that's coming through, and that's really exciting. There's still a wealth of knowledge that's housed in the minds of people that have been there a very long time. So it's about balancing that and bringing the two together.
That's lovely. We also have another question. You've talked around the deterioration of magnetic tape, and you have material in a wide range of formats. They've got DVDs, and probably, well, hopefully you don't have any pneumatics left, but the whole range of different formats. Do you have, while you've got the plan for 2025, which is fantastic, are you developing, or do you have life cycle for DVDs and other formats that are ready for your future planning?
Yes, that's a good question as well. So, it would be very fair to say that we've been very focused on deadline 2025 and the immediate issues that present to us with magnetic tape deteriorating. And it's visible and you can see the problem and you know how much you've got to do, and we're just head down getting on with it. But we're not going to get to 2025 and say, oh, cool, we're ready to put our heels up. We won't have barely touched our film collection. That really needs to be looked at next, and we're really trying to get some more resources in to look at that. And what's more, as I said, every format that comes in, even digital formats, they're almost immediately obsolete in today's world. So we need to be preserving them and actively preserving them in a way that that keeps up with technology over time. We are signing up with, I can't say yet because I haven't signed on the dotted line, but we're working with another tertiary institution soon, which will look at active preservation of complex digital objects and what that looks like for an archive. And we're talking about archives the world over who use these asset management systems probably purchased in the 80s or 90s. And we cannot rely on those old systems anymore. It needs to be part of a much more modular approach. We need to really look at things completely differently as to how we do it in the future. I don't know that that answers the question, but it's certainly, I can certainly empathise with the challenge.
Well, that's a good thing. Now we have a couple of other questions, and what we might do is just take one from them, and then we might put up a little blog after this, and so ask you for a bit more content. One of the things people are interested in is you've shown the wonderful digital suite that you're using now for in-house. You've talked about the relationship with universities. Do you use external vendors as well for digitisation?
We have done in the past. We do use external vendors. For our most at-risk items, we would always be doing those in-house. And I know that other archives, both within the ACT where we are and elsewhere across the country, use external vendors, and there's a market there too.
Good, thank you. That's it.
Easy. Thank you,
so
Roxanne.
much for
Thanks
speaking
for having me.
today.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Now we're going to a 2-minute break, or we may already be on the break.